Let's jump into this news, man. Vladimir Putin from Independent. Putin tells Biden, don't be mad at the mirror if you are ugly. Compares Capitol rioters to his own dissent. This is amazing. Vladimir Putin sought to compare crackdowns on his political enemies and the arrests of anti-government protesters in his country to the events of January 6th in an interview published by NBC News. Speaking with journalists in Moscow, Mr. Putin claimed that the U.S. and other countries had no evidence for allegations of election interference, ransomware attacks, and other malicious activities for which the West has blamed Russia or Russian-based actors in recent years. He also pointed to the arrests of hundreds of suspected participants in the U.S. Capitol riot on January 6th as evidence that the Biden administration or U.S. was targeting Americans based on their political opinions. You guys ready for this one? Quote, did you order the assassination of the woman who walked into the Congress and who was shot and killed by a policeman? Mr. Putin said, referring to Ashley Babbitt, a California woman who died during the riot after being shot by a member of the U.S. Capitol Police who was cleared of wrongdoing in her death. Do you know that 450 individuals were arrested after entering the Congress, and they didn't go there to steal a laptop? They came with political demands, said Mr. Putin. The U.S., he reasoned, was guilty of the same intolerance for political dissent as his government has been accused of harboring. Putin's government in recent months has cracked down on an organization run by Alexei Navalny, a top critic of the Russian president, and requested that a court order it to be classified as an extremist organization, Navalny's. Mr. Navalny remains in prison after surviving an assassination attempt via Novichok, a Soviet-era nerve agent. The U.S., UK, and numerous other Western nations have blamed Russia for the attack, which Mr. Putin has denied. We don't have this kind of habit of assassinating anybody, Mr. Putin said in the interview with NBC. And this is what you really got to understand. The other day, we have our friend Andreas. You may have seen him in the Castle vlogs. He was playing video footage just in the basement of a normal day walking through Moscow. And it's really interesting when you see this. It's just a video of someone wearing a GoPro and they're walking down the street in Moscow, and you can see the shops and the cell phone stores. And boy, does it look the exact same as it does like walking in a street in New York, whatever. I mean, I get it. The architecture is a little bit different. But then you realize, a lot of people don't realize this. When you're in Russia, the news you hear, they don't say Putin is the demon devil. They're going to be hearing very, very similar things to what we hear about, in the United States. They're going to be hearing things about the U.S. very similar to what we hear about Russia. So it's interesting. We are seeing a lot of people there's a lot of people on January 6th, we always say it, did stupid things, and they're going to get arrested and charged for it. But what about the insurrection over the past year that's still going on to this day that's not been dealt with, and the Democrats who support it? Putin saying what a lot of people, I think, in America don't want to hear.
And what a lot of people haven't acknowledged yet, which is pretty big, is that what's happening to some of the people that attended the January 6th event is absolutely atrocious. There's huge violations of human rights. There's people being put in solitary confinement. There's allegations of torture. There's people who can't get lawyers. There's lawyers who are afraid to represent people. And then Putin, on the national stage, to the U.S. mainstream media, brought this up, and I think he makes a very fair equivalent. I mean, the United States points fingers at countries that violating human rights. Well, let's really look at all human rights objectively, and let's look at it from a way where we could actually impact it and make a difference. Putin also went on and called Biden a career politician. Those are also very big statements from Vladimir Putin, from the same person who also described the American political system as being previously ruled by men in black suits. This is a Putin characterization of the American political system, and I think there's some merit to that, especially when you look into BlackRock, the Federal Reserve, and all these other multinational billionaire corporations that really, truly have an invested interest in getting their policies approved. Meanwhile, popular policies never do get passed. So this is going to be interesting because Putin and Biden will be meeting face-to-face in 2 days. And what's going to happen? I mean, this is going to be huge. Vladimir Putin previously went up to Joe Biden on the world stage and said, you know what? You just called me a killer. Let's have a one-on-one international debate. No rules, no pre-scripted questions. Me and you just talking to the entire world. What did Biden respond?
True to not shove under pressure.
Come on, man.
I think those are fairly accurate, but he didn't. He didn't respond. Just like he didn't respond to today's question when he was asked about calling Putin a killer, he kind of walked it back a little bit and then was kind of stuck for 25 minutes again.
Minutes?
Seconds.
25 seconds. Apologies.
It's like he's just sitting there for a long time.
It almost felt like
Still
25
thinking
minutes
about it.
personally with just how long the gap was. But this is going to be very interesting to see how this is going to be unfolding in the next 2 days, because tensions between these two countries, the United States and Russia, couldn't be any higher, and the stakes couldn't be any higher as well.
To be fair, like, hasn't Vladimir Putin bounced back and forth between like president and prime minister or whatever, doing that trick to remain in power?
Yes.
He has.
Yeah, so,
There's room for criticism, just like he said. Hey, you got Alexei Navalny, we got Ashley Babbitt. And there's some, let's be honest here, there's something to intellectually, entertain here.
Yeah, I think the issue is that in my lifetime, an American president hasn't had the moral high ground to talk shit to Putin. I mean, that's my perspective, is that ultimately, is he a bad guy? Sure. Has anyone ruled our country that has been a good guy in my lifetime? No.
Quite the opposite.
No. So it's weird because I feel I still hold on to these tinges of patriotism where I'm like, no, I have to stand with my nation. But the truth is, when I hear Putin talk about our politicians in particular, I find a lot to agree with.
We should criticize all of them. If someone violates human rights, they should
Exactly.
be criticized. No matter who they are, what they are, human rights should always matter above politics. And sadly, we don't have that in our mainstream system that is just focused on doing the bidding of the military-industrial complex, because when a country that has an alliance with the United States, that has geopolitical strategy to be gained by the State Department, we don't see any criticisms of human rights violations then. That doesn't happen. But when there's a goal, there's an aim, there's some oil, there's some natural resources, there's some petrodollar politics that could be played here, we're going to be talking about it nonstop.
I think also, to be fair, back the other way, I can point out, Putin has retained power for a long time. But what's the difference between the devil you know and the devil you don't? When we have a political system, which it is the exact same people pushing all the buttons, they just put a different front person in. It's like, here's the current iteration of the neoconservative or neoliberal establishment. It's the same party. They all agree on the same thing. In fact, the only difference we've seen in the past, in my lifetime, was Donald Trump. And then the neoconservatives joined the neolibs and formed this outright uniparty, which we just jokingly referred to as the uniparty before. Ultimately just said, okay, we're all on the same side. We don't like Trump, and we're going to do everything in our power to stop him. I don't see a big difference, to be completely honest. I don't see
a huge difference either. And Hans Hermann Hoppe actually argued that monarchy was superior to democracy for exactly what you just described, that you have, first off, you have consistency, but also you have a guy who is committed to the long-term success of his nation because he realizes he's going to be there for a while. And with Putin, he's like, I'm going to be there for 20 years. I'm going to take this serious. For the record, not advocating for monarchy. I'm just saying that there has been an argument made.
Yeah, but what you said in the beginning of this broadcast, with people walking in Moscow, looking exactly at the people who walk in New York City, the people are the losers here. The real winners are the military-industrial complex. Whenever we see these two heads of states clash, and we saw a very serious clash point just a few weeks ago, there was massive troops building up on the Ukraine-Russian border. There was massive U.S. NATO forces being sent in. There was war games. Tensions were really high. Who won? Who benefits off of that larger geopolitical conundrum that is Ukraine right now? That is a proxy war that is happening right now, that people are dying in right now as we're speaking. Who's winning? Not the people,
the shareholders
people who make the missiles.
Of
Lockheed Martin
and Lockheed Martin and Boeing.
Yeah.
You get it.
BAE.
Yeah, because the people, like, if our government screws up and then our country suffers from conflict and debt, those shareholders, those executives, they can cash out that currency to any other currency they want and jump ship.
Yeah,
that's what they're doing. They're profiting off our backs. They're extracting value from our system.
And they're playing with countries that are proxies, whether it's Yemen, whether it's Syria, whether it's Ukraine, and they're playing with real life. And a lot of people die from this. Ukraine. Joe Biden just also announced that Ukraine, quote, must clean up their corruption before joining NATO. That's another backstep to, again, a very hard-line policy.
He just said that?
He just said that.
It's the same thing they've been saying going back 5-6 years.
And when you look at Donald Trump was the first president to give lethal aid to Ukraine, which absolutely angered Russia and also escalated the situation. Now we're seeing a bigger escalation on top of all of that, with Joe Biden calling him a killer. He's now trying to walk back those statements. Biden's also blaming him for the hacking ransom attacks that have been happening here. And another big aspect of this story that people are forgetting, the ransom hacking attacks are linked many times to NSA spying toolkits that were paid for by American tax dollars and were let loose on the internet. The tools used for these ransom attacks were created by the NSA. And now the mainstream media, along with Joe Biden, are saying it's Russia, when even intelligence agencies in the United States are saying, no, it's not Russia. There's no way to find out because it's online.
This is one of the craziest things. The Daily Mail kept saying all these hacks were Russian linked. And I'm looking at these articles and I'm like, there's no evidence for that. And then Joe Biden himself comes out and says it's not Russian linked.
And then he said it is Russian.
He said it might be people in Russia.
Exactly.
But not the Russian government, not the country itself, just individuals.
Yes. And now he's been asked about this, and Putin responded, and he's saying, where's the evidence? I want to see the evidence. Are you going to hold me responsible for Black Lives Matter as well? Those are literally Putin's statements today on this matter.
The Democrats have been accusing Russia of propping up these Facebook pages and putting money into Black Lives Matter, as well as right-wing groups, for years now. So yes, they are blaming him. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.